Good morning and welcome to our celebration of Founders Day 2021 here at North London Collegiate School, Dubai. Each year at the end of the spring term, the family of 4 North London Collegiate schools around the world join in an act of commemoration and thanks for those who laid the pathway for thousands upon thousands of students since 1850.
Founders Day usually encompasses age-old traditions as part of the formal ceremony, celebration meals and a coming together of the wider school community. But this year we will be celebrating in a different yet still meaningful way.
All filming for today's ceremony has taken place over the last 2 weeks in a socially distanced and safe manner and has been skillfully edited together to form today's ceremony.
Each year, across all of our schools, a theme is chosen for our celebrations. This year, that theme is environmentalism and stewardship of the planet we all call home. Students in all grades have recently been reflecting upon their role in ensuring we pass the earth on to future generations so they may reap the benefits and enjoy life just as we do. As you watch today's ceremony, we invite you all to reflect on how we can be stewards of planet Earth and how we can honour the work of the founders of NLCS so we too can create our own legacy here in Dubai and beyond.
We hope that by this time next year we will be able to celebrate in our usual manner. But in the meantime, students, please enjoy our Founders Day celebrations from the comfort of our school and parents from the comfort of your home, in the knowledge that we all look forward to welcoming everyone back into our school in the not too distant future.
As is tradition, we will open with a performance of the Uae National Anthem. Please be upstanding.
Wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze.
Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance.
The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought.
For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye with the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils.
But themselves confound his strength from bodies. No foe shall stay his might, though he with giants fight. He will make good and fear not what men say. I labor night and day to be a pilgrim.
عزم الشباب من صاحب السمو محمد بن راشد المكتوم. ساري والليالي ما تعرف الأمان، والدروب القصايد من ظنوني وضنا، وأخوياي المراجل والطموح الحصان، أسرج الريح وأنا عارف من أنا، طفج وأقبض عنانه ولو رقيت العنان، طار فوق المجرة واختفي في السنا. مرحبا يا شباب يكسبون الرهان، يا أملنا المرجى وللوطن ذخرنا. كنت بأول شبابي مثلكم واستبان، حلم يا ما حلمته كل يوم ودنا. سنكم يوم عمري بعد 10 و8، وقت عشته وشفته متعب وممحنا. ودي أني أخبر كيف كان الزمان، بالصعايب لأهلنا دوم يتلونا. ما عرفوه السهالة ولا اعرفوا الاطمئنان، بس غير شده وحده وانتظار وعناه. البدو في شظافة وفي عسر وامتحان، البحر عيشة أهلا في الشق والضنا، وللغوص مد وما عليهم ضمان، في غبيب ومهالك حل فيها الفنا. وعقب وقت الشدايد موسم خير حان، وصارت الدار جنة طاب فيها الجنى. طللتنا السعادة بعد جور الزمان، واتحدنا وصرنا دولة كلنا. وقتكم في ربيع يا شبابي وأمان، ما عرفت عنانا ولا تصعب كدنا. احفظوا الدرس عنا بالذي قبل كان، وبالعمل والإرادة ترفعون البنا. Determination of Youth by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. I journey on nights that know not of peace, my path ahead full of doubt and unease. Driven by valor and powerful ambition, I command the winds with utmost conviction. If the reins which I grasp were to be released, I would soar beyond the galaxy where the light has ceased. A salute to our youth, promising and ambitious, our country's tomorrow, fulfilling all wishes. When I was young like you, I envisioned a dream. The more I dreamt, the more it would gleam. A mere lad I was, at the age of 18. I witnessed tough times, harshest I've seen. How I wished to portray days of the past, filled with hardships that forever last. As our people struggled, little did they rest, enduring with patience every grueling test. Living in arid lands, they led a life of persistence, the sea a source of livelihood and subsistence. Those who set out diving endangered their lives. Within fatal realms they tried to survive. Once the ordeals ended, spring arrived glorious. The land was paradise where everyone joyous. Happiness sheltered us from the tyranny of time, as we all united, a nation in its prime. O young ones, you live in a time of blissful spring, needless to taste the past suffering. Learn from the past and in the present relish. With your ambitions our nation shall flourish. Thank you.
Nature is our biggest ally and our greatest inspiration. We just have to do what nature has always done. It worked out the secret of life long ago. In this world, a species can only thrive when everything else around it thrives too. We can solve the problems we now face by embracing this reality. If we take care of nature, nature will take care of us. It's now time for our species to stop simply growing, to establish a life on our planet in balance with nature, to start to thrive. When you think about it, we're completing a journey. 10,000 years ago, as hunters-gatherers, we lived a sustainable life because that was the only option. All these years later, it's once again the only option. We need to rediscover how to be sustainable, to move from being apart from nature to becoming a part of nature once again. If we can change the way we live on Earth, an alternative future comes into view. In this future, we discover ways to benefit from our land that helped rather than hinder wilderness, ways to fish our seas that enable them to come quickly back to life, and ways to harvest our forests sustainably. We will finally learn how to work with nature rather than against it. There are many differences between humans and the rest of the species on Earth, but one that has been expressed is that we alone are able to imagine the future. For a long time, I, and perhaps you, have dreaded that future, but it's now becoming apparent that it's not all doom and gloom. There's a chance for us to make amends, to complete our journey of development, manage our impact, and once again become a species in balance with nature. All we need is this will to do so. We now have the opportunity to create the perfect home for ourselves and restore the rich, healthy, and wonderful world that we inherited. Just imagine that. Taken from A Life on Planet Earth, Sir David Attenborough, 2020.
trees. The trees are coming into leaf, like something always being said. Their recent buds relax and spread. Their greenness is a kind of grief. Is that they are born again, and we grow old? No, they die too. Their yearly trick of looking new is written down in rings of grain. Yet still the unresting castles thresh in full-grown thickness every May. Last year's dead, they seem to say, begin afresh, afresh, afresh.
On Founders' Day, we celebrate and remember the work of those school leaders, members of staff and students who have come before us. Unfortunately, we have been unable to celebrate Founders' Day in the usual way in 2020 and again this year, 2021. This recording replaces the usual principal speech in front of many students, colleagues and guests. I very much hope that this time next year I will be standing here in front of you celebrating a return to those events we all treasure as part of our annual celebrations. Each year, a theme or particular subject is chosen, and we trace its influence on the school through time. During the recent events, human awareness has been heightened with an even greater focus on social media and global news. The environmental impact of the current situation has had some positive news, which has, for me, allowed us to be acutely aware of what is possible if we all make the right decisions as individuals, communities, and nations as a whole. Climate change is one of the most important threats facing us all today. The recent wildfires in Australia and the United States, the rise in temperatures in the Arctic and Antarctic, the widespread bleaching of coral in our oceans, the increasing intensity and frequency of hurricanes and tropical storms, the increased threats from extreme weather events over the past 100 years all point towards a change in our planet's regional and global climate patterns that present us with a level of disruption and challenge that modern humanity has not faced before. How we live alongside each other and the billions of species of plant and animal life that surround us all should concern us. Recent developments in scientific thinking has pointed to the dangers that we face. Recent philosophical, political, and social thinking has shown us that thinking about this issue in different scales, the personal, immediate, local, national, and global, and also in different ways, waste, energy, recycling, helps us all to determine the different options we have moving forward. At our London school, in the early days, the school addressed concerns about overcrowding in classrooms, worries about the ever-increasing pollution in the air around the school's original location in North London, and the noise pollution from the traffic, and even about the drains and use of water on the school site. Then later, in the school's history, an opportunity presented itself to buy a site away from the centre of London and move the school out of the busyness and smog of the city for the green fields and healthier environment of the present site in Edgware. Here in Dubai, we are faced with a number of environmental challenges, and as a school, we have begun to make progress in educating and communicating to our community about what it is that we can do to tackle these. In the early days of our London school, the environment was always a consideration for the founder. As the school began to grow, it rapidly became obvious that the number of girls wanting to take advantage of Miss Bus's education were too great to be accommodated in a semi-detached townhouse. Overcrowding was the main challenge and would certainly not have met the current guidelines surrounding social distancing. Here in Dubai, the early days were identified with dust from construction and the usual impact that living in an arid environment poses to all of us wherever we live. We had a few challenges with the drains and the sometimes unpleasant smells emanating from the ground. The London school also had some challenges with leaking pipes and the city summer stench that was often associated with poor plumbing. Thankfully, those problems seem to have abated as the local infrastructure has developed. The London school did in fact have a number of similar challenges to our school here in Dubai. Transport was developing, and with the invention of the combustion engine, the number of cars increased dramatically during the first part of the 20th century. Here in Dubai, we have a similar challenge. Our society revolves around the car. And while the number of electric cars has increased, the price of petrol continues to support a community which is very much based around the combustion engine as well. The girls in our London school were themselves not impressed by the environment surrounding the school. One example of this was demonstrated by Olive Gabriel, a student in the upper sixth, who in 1932 wrote a poem called Night Traffic. And while we do not have boarding students in the school, I thought I would take this moment to read her poem as a piece of our collective history. Night traffic. A myriad wheels are spinning fast, a myriad jar and whir, and engines hum and throb and thrum with a pounding, pulsing purr. The trams roll on with ponderous roar, and the paving blocks resound to the tramp and beat of the horses' feet as the wheels go trundling round. Like bluish veils that hang in the air, the fumes of petrol sway, and they twist and swirl with the spokes that whirl, while the hooters blare and bray. Lorries that lumber and rumble and crash, buses that swerve and jar, come rattling down to Camden Town, where the glaring street lamps are. A myriad wheels are spinning fast, and every axle squeals, and mounting high to the dark night sky is the hum of the whirring wheels. Well, we do not have the sound of horses' hooves very often, if at all, but of that poem, written in 1932, much rings true for many of us here in Dubai. Since opening in 2017, NLCS Dubai has set up and implemented a number of environmental initiatives. The Environmental Society was formed in September 2018, and in our second year, the Society was the driving force behind creating awareness around the use of plastic bottles. We removed the use of plastic bottles in our school for events and encouraged students to have their own water bottle, and implemented water dispensers on all floors of the school. At the beginning of 2020, in our first assembly of the new year, I launched the environment as a focus for the year ahead and gave an assembly on the circular economy and the importance of reusing. Little did we know that the current situation and the COVID pandemic was only a few weeks away. Nevertheless, the messages are still pertinent to us all. Don't buy that new pair of shoes if the old ones can be resold. Hold out on buying that new t-shirt if the old one still has a bit more life left in it. I also wrote to the community encouraging them to car share and to reduce the amount of traffic coming to the school each morning and afternoon. Well, that initiative has had to be delayed for obvious reasons. Car sharing is currently actively advised against. One more example of how the pandemic has not helped the environment. And just before the lockdown, a year ago, the Environmental Society implemented an awareness week for waste food in the dining hall. The aim was to get people to think carefully about how much and which food they were taking. The old adage of making sure your plate is empty seems to have been lost in current society. So often do I see food being left at restaurants. Food waste is the single largest household contributor to landfill in the world and generates billions of tons of greenhouse gases. But there have been some COVID environmental positives. And while COVID has brought many disadvantages to the environment, here in Dubai, there have been some wonderful and surprising impacts which are there to remind us of what we can achieve as we move out of the current situation. Some figures put the reduction of air pollution across the world at 25%. Fewer emissions from air travel, which is one of the biggest contributors to greenhouse gases, fewer people affected by respiratory diseases as a result of cleaner air, and during the March to April lockdown in 2020, carbon emissions in the UK dropped by 48%. Water quality in some of the world's major rivers improved dramatically, with plant and animal life beginning to thrive as soon as levels of emissions and pollution fell. It was very clear what could be achieved and how quickly if we are all to take responsibility for reducing our own carbon footprints. Immense unintended advantages offered opportunities for unprecedented insights into the ways our natural and urban environments interact. These insights can help us build pathways to sustainable conservation in the future. Wildlife began to hit the news during the pandemic, with animals not seen for years appearing in our streets. There were sightings of unusual visitors to towns and cities. Flocks of flamingos flying to beaches and lakes for the first time. Dolphins swimming in rivers. Big cats patrolling city streets. And turtles returning to some beaches for the first time in decades. What did all of this tell us? Well, it showed us what could be achieved if we all care and we all take the environment seriously. Take a moment to note down the positives and how we can maintain them. So what is our environmental future here at NLCS Dubai? All the hard work of individuals in the past, both students, staff and old North Londoners, is hugely impressive. But despite the enthusiasm of individuals and small groups, much more is required. Informed by the latest scientific research and the desire to create lasting and measurable change in our impact on the planet, as well as to continue to educate, debate and inform our school community. What is our environmental plan for the future then? Our main aim is to reduce our carbon footprint in order to become carbon neutral. When could this be achieved? Some countries are looking to 2030 as a key year for achieving this. And the UAE is already moving quickly in terms of energy production, with both nuclear, solar and wind power developments being completed. With a growing school community, we have a challenge, but also a responsibility to engage in doing whatever we can. Our strategy covers three main areas. 1, community engagement and participation. 2, travel and transport. And 3, waste and water. Our past is important to us. It provides a context for our work and a confidence that we are all walking in the footsteps of extraordinary people. But it is, of course, the future that truly matters. It is clear that there are significant technological challenges here in the fight to address climate change. Who will be the first to discover a wholly new replacement for plastics? When will we be able to charge our electric cars quickly and conveniently? Who will find the way to achieve commercially useful nuclear fission? But is the political and individual change required the bigger challenge? The behavioural change that is being asked of us all at this time is huge, but it is one that we are all able to address. Many of the challenges that we need to put in place in order to reduce our carbon footprint require all of us to change our habits and alter our mindset. Can we find alternative ways to travel? As you all know, I like cycling, and I would love to be able to cycle to work every day safely. What can I do to help? Maybe write a letter to the authorities in support of developing more and more cycle paths along main roads. Remember our own water bottle. Stop choosing fast fashion. Switch the lights off and turn down our air conditioning. Bring shopping bags to Spinneys. Buy less, recycle more. We have made a good start, but there is so much more we can do, and there is more to come, all while maintaining our commitment to the highest standards of pastoral care and academic ambition. A message to you, the students. One of your biggest challenges is changing the habits of your parents. They have all grown up in a world where the environment was not as high on the political agenda. You need to keep the pressure up on us to ensure we reach a point of sustainability and harmony. I have no doubt that we will meet this challenge with great energy, imagination, determination, and humour, qualities that North Londoners possess in abundance. What we all do now will not only affect our own lives, but those of future generations. It is a responsibility and a challenge that we will not shy away from. As with COVID, the saying, "we are all responsible," applies to the environment too. We can all contribute to a better environment locally and globally, and we must take responsibility as individuals if our students and our children are to have a safe and happy future. Thank you.
Our Unique Sphere by Hanya. Mother Nature had blessed us with wonderful planet Earth. It's a beautiful and gorgeous place since its birth. From the memorizing oceans full deep with fish and shells, to the purified clear water in Sion wells. It's come a long way, the rustle bright yellow daffodils lay. In the forests and gardens we must look after, or else there'll be none the hereafter. We must protect our earth without causing too much harm, or else we'll be left without much of its harm. Our air, our atmosphere, our ozone, we must not pollute. Recycle, reuse, and reduce we must salute. Our oceans, our forests, our deserts, we must take care, our amazing earth that we share. Beautiful planet Earth is our home, so gorgeous, full of blue and green. Let's all work together to keep it clean.
Now, according to our bounden duty, let us thankfully commemorate our pious founder and all our benefactors by whose noble liberality these schools have been endowed with manifold privileges.
In the forefront, we commemorate Frances Mary Buss, who did, in the year 1850, found a school for girls in North London, and under whose fostering care for 44 years, virtue and studies prevailed in it, and it attained to its development in the 4 schools now called by her name.
Let us also thankfully remember Sophie Bryant, fellow worker with the founder, and after the founder's death, for 23 years headmistress, by whose wisdom and zealous care the work was carried to its full fruition.
And after her, as partner and successor in her work, Isabella Drummond, headmistress for 22 years, whose spirit of service enlarges our traditions and to whose wisdom and courage inspires us in our work.
And after her, Aileen Harold, who by sound learning and courtesy enriched our common life during the stern years of the war.
And after her, Kitty Anderson, headmistress for 21 years, who served the cause of education in the school and beyond it with warmth and tireless enthusiasm.
And after her, Madeline McLaughlin, headmistress for 20 years who fostered personal relationships in a family school, encouraged the development of music and drama, and whose courage and insight oversaw the transition from direct grant to independent status.
And after her, Joan Clancy, headmistress for 12 years, whose vision, energy, and determination enhanced the standing of the school and encouraged the growth of a community in which scholarship and the arts and care for each individual flourished together.
And after her, Bernice McCabe, headmistress for 20 years, who led with drive and ambition, creating a happy community and fostering academic independence and aspiration, whose belief in the transformational power of the performing arts enabled girls to grow in confidence, and whose vision underpinned the development of the school's international profile.
and the members of the founder's family. Frances Buss, the mother of the founder, who made the nurture of the younger children her special care. Robert William Buss, the father of the founder, zealous in the teaching of science and art. Septimus Buss, brother of the founder, for many years teacher of the Holy Scriptures, and other benefactors of the school, in particular the Worshipful Company of Brewers, the Worshipful Company of Clothworkers, John and Doreen Dunn, Sir Harry and Lady Jeffcote, all who gave us great gifts and wise counsel. They are ever to be remembered by the scholars now and in time to come. For these are founder and benefactors, whose services we have thus publicly recited to the perpetuating of their memory, we testify our own thankfulness.
Trees where you sit
We hope you have enjoyed this year's Founders Day ceremony from North London Collegiate School, Dubai. We would like to thank our readers and musicians, our teachers and staff members who have assisted in the planning and production of this year's celebration, and Mr. Andrew McCoy for his filming and editing work.
We hope you take away the meaningful message about our environment and the duty which we owe planet Earth, as well as a sense of belonging in our school traditions. We wish you all a restful and peaceful spring break and look forward to even more exciting times in the summer term.